For this fox, I didn't choose the background I loved the most. Ultramarine, sap green, and burnt sienna won. Not because it's exciting, but because it lets the fox tell the story. And here's why. Have you ever finished a watercolor subject you love and then completely froze when choosing the background? The problem isn't which color looks nice. It's what does this color say about the painting. I will show you a few options and I will talk you through them. Okay, for the first test, I chose indigo, quinacridone magenta, and only two rather intense colors. To me, this mood feels dramatic and a little mysterious. I feel tension here, and it feels emotional, maybe slightly uneasy. It's beautiful, but when painting, ask yourself, does this live in mystery or in light? Think of the mood. If you like this kind of videos, please hit like and subscribe. That really helps me keep going. For the second test, I chose French Ultramarine, Quinacridone Magenta again, and Burnt Sienna, just a touch. This one feels softer, it's more expressive, it's more artistic, and, almost dreamy looking. If I chose this one, I would keep a great deal of color harmony in this painting. But then I asked myself, is this what I want, or do I want the fox to pop out of the painting a little more? I find it a very pretty color. However, if you know me, I love contrast of any kind. My third test is similar to the previous two, with the exception that I used French Ultramarine. And here's the winning combination: French Ultramarine, sap green, and just a touch of burnt sienna to tone it down. Nothing dramatic, and that's the point. The background doesn't need to shout. It just lets the fox breathe. For me, this is a winning combination because it stays cool and receding, it harmonizes with the fox, and it supports the subject instead of competing with it. And to talk about the subject, the fox, it stays warmer, darker, and it stays the star. How about you? Do you choose backgrounds for mood or for contrast? Tell me in the comments, which one would you choose for this fox and why? Ciao, ciao. Are Maimeriblu watercolors for everyone? No, they're not for everybody, but for the right uses, they're absolutely outstanding. If you clicked on this video, you probably want to know more about these Maimeriblu watercolor greens. So today, they are the star of the show. I'll be swatching them, I'll be painting with them. I want you to see how they actually behave on paper, and hopefully by the end of this video, you'll be happy with what you've learned. This is the final episode in my Maimeriblu swatching series. I've already swatched yellows, reds, oranges, and blues. And today we're finishing up with these greens and blue greens. One of the most underrated mistakes in watercolor has nothing to do with brushes, paper, or technique. It's painting with an underfilled palette. When your pens are low, you compensate without realizing it. You scrub to pick up pigment, you mix longer than necessary, you go back over washes that should have been left alone. And more often than not, this is a mistake beginners do over and over again. They're too shy with their pigment. If you like what you're seeing and you want to know more about watercolor painting, please hit like and subscribe and head over to my channel. I have so many good watercolor tips for you there. So what I was trying to say is that that's how muddy color and damaged paper happen. And this isn't a skill issue. It's a setup issue. Fresh paint loads the brush properly, so color transfers to paper immediately. With enough pigment, washes are stronger on the first pass. Mixing is cleaner, and you need fewer strokes. It's basically less effort and better results. If you notice yourself reworking the same area, stop and check your palette. Low paint almost always leads to overworking. So if your watercolor looks dull, don't assume you're doing something wrong. If you see your pigments are running low, maybe you're not doing something wrong on the paper. And don't forget, never be shy when you pick up the paint. This is also one of the causes for overworked watercolors, but we'll keep this for a different episode. So with a full palette, the paint does the work. Your job is just placement and water control. Ciao, ciao! Many watercolor artists don't like to hear this, but values are more important than color. These blueberries have clean colors, strong dark values, and clear highlights. And yes, sometimes it can be a stylistic choice, but this time I left them out intentionally. Let me tell you something. In watercolor, you're constantly working with wet paper. That shine tricks your eye into thinking your values are darker than what they really are. And that's why you stop too early, especially in the midtones. While the paint is wet, it looks perfect. But once it dries, the midtones disappear. And that's what's happening here. The values are strong, but the midtones don't fully bridge the highlight and the shadow. So the form feels sharper and less round. Do you see that? So before we go to the takeaway, let me tell you that if you like this kind of videos, like and subscribe. That helps me keep creating more. So here's what to do. In watercolor, when you think your midtones are enough, they usually aren't. So you almost always need to push them one more step. Whether you're a beginner or an intermediate in watercolor, please know that this is a very common mistake. And that's why I'm working on creating new classes to help you spot this midtone trap and get comfortable pushing your values to the right amount. I was there, and what I can tell you is that watercolor lies when it's wet. But when it dries, that's when the values tell you the truth. Let me know in the comments below, what's the trickiest part for you when painting in watercolors? See you in the next one. Ciao, ciao. If you love watercolor and you ever wanted to paint the northern lights without the stress, I have a little Christmas gift for you. It's a free class on my channel. It's packed with everything you need, and I break everything down clearly and simply. I explain my color choices, do a quick value study, and share practical tips to help you get that glow without mud or overworking. And yes, Merry Christmas to you. I'm so happy to have you here. I hope you'll enjoy the class, and if so, please hit like and subscribe. Your interest motivates me to share more. Well, I'll see you there. Buon Natale. Have we actually been saying these watercolors name correctly? We've all seen the Maimeriblu Watercolors. They've been swatched, reviewed, tested, and talked about a lot, and I'm definitely not the only YouTuber making content about them. But here's something I realized. We talk about their granulation, transparency, and color shifts, but we haven't really talked about how these colors are actually called. And since these are Italian, today we're doing a quick fun video on how to pronounce Maimeriblu color names properly in Italian. Because yes, there's been lots of misreading and a lot of creative spelling. Let's fix that. First of all, the brand name. They're called Maimeriblu. Now let's go through my collection. If you're interested in watching full-length swatching videos, I have them on my channel, so head over there. You'll find lots of interesting information about these watercolors. Permanent Yellow Lemon, Giallo Permanente Limone. Naples Yellow, Giallo di Napoli. Transparent Yellow, Giallo Trasparente. Golden Yellow, Giallo Oro. Yellow Ochre, Ocra Gialla. Permanent Orange, Arancio Permanente. Pyrrole Orange, Arancio Pirolo. Transparent Mars Red, Rosso di Marte Trasparente. Pyrrole Red, Rosso Pirolo. Permanent Red Light, Rosso Permanente Chiaro. Sandal Red, Rosso Sandalo. Quinacridone Red, Rosso Quinacridone. Primary Red Magenta, Rosso Primario Magenta. Rose Alizarin Madder, Lacca di Garanza Rosa. I love this one. Verzino Violet, Violetto Verzino. Quinacridone Magenta, Magenta Quinacridone. Sorry it's a little bit ruined, but Faience Blue, Blue di Faenza. Prussian Blue, Blue di, Blue di Prussia. Ultramarine Light, this is a gorgeous color. Blu Oltremare Chiaro. Cerulean Sky Blue. The granulation on this one is fantastic. Celeste Ceruleo. Primary Blue Cyan. Blue Primario Cyan. Turquoise Green. Verde Turquese. One of my favorite blues. Phthalo Turquoise. Turquese Phthalocianina. Cupric Green Deep. Verde Cupro Scuro. Cupric Green Light. Verde Cupro Chiaro. Sap Green. Verde Vescica. Burnt Amber. Terra d'ombra bruciata. Neutral Tint. Tinta neutra. Indigo. Indaco. If you find yourself hesitant to start watercolor painting, here's the way I approach planning ahead. I will divide the painting into 3 categories: highlights, midtones, and shadows. I go onto the reference picture. I take note of where the highlights are. So here I wrote 1 because I'm going to be painting the highlights first. There's a highlight, so I wrote 1 again. Between highlights and midtones, we have this area for first layer, so the watery consistency. I'll be using yellow, ochre, Indian yellow. Here I note 2 to 3, and then we have the midtones, all these ones, all here, all here. Then for my midtones, some Indian yellow, burnt umber, red, and yellow here. So I'm going to write 5. There's like a transition point down here, so this area is going to be a 5 to 6. The darker midtones are Indian yellow, burnt umber, red, and yellow, plus a touch of blue if I want to push towards darkest values. And then we go in the darks, is value 8. Black accents, some burnt umber, indigo, and neutral tint. What am I talking about when I refer to those numbers? It's basically my value scale, value 1 to 10. Around here, I estimate it to be around value 8, more or less. How do I handle these differences in highlights, midtones, and dark? For the highlights, I usually paint with a watery paint consistency. For the midtones, I'll grab our coffee kind of paint, so it's not as watery as number 1. And for the dark, a more creamy consistency. Not very fussing about numbers of these values. It's more like when I plan, I want to know where my values are. Up to value 3 is super watery paint. 4, 5, and 6, coffee consistency paint. 7 to 9 is basically when I use creamy paint. And then 10 are the accents. And so also value 1 is an accent. It's like untouched paper. What I usually do next is a quick thumbnail sketch. I paint wet on wet, just like a rough sketch. There's a mix of red and yellow. Nothing too accurate. Cool tones. That's too intense, so I'm going to add more water to dilute it on paper. Now, more like coffee-like texture. Then we put this one here. I paint these little studies on my bao hong paper, and I don't bother to change the paintbrush. I'm just using a round size 6, and it works just fine. Given that this fox is red and yellow, so it's a warm subject, I'm going to be painting the background with some cool pigments, and I'm using French ultramarine, some purple, and a little touch of burnt umber. You can leave it unfinished in some places. Let's define the muzzle here. This is how I plan for my paintings. I hope you enjoyed it. If so, hit like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Ciao, ciao. If you've ever felt overwhelmed by watercolor paper, too many brands, too many options, and no real answers, this video is for you. I've tried enough papers to know that most of them don't make the cut. Only 3 have earned a permanent place on my art desk, and these are the only ones I still buy. Let's start with Bao Hong Academy paper. This is my student grade paper, and I use it very intentionally. I don't use it for finished paintings, but it's perfect for sketches, studies, and color swatches. The only problem with this paper is the low absorbency. The paint tends to sit on top, and when I use Maimeriblu Watercolors, it can turn into a bit of a mess. That said, with HOLBEIN or Rembrandt, this paper behaves much better and becomes far more manageable. For the price though, it's still an excellent paper to practice testing colors, and that's exactly why I keep it in my workflow. If you like what you're seeing, please hit like and subscribe. I upload daily, and honestly, I'm still figuring out if I should keep posting here. So your support really helps me understand what content is actually useful to you. Saunders Waterford cold press paper. And fun fact, this was the first watercolor paper I've ever used. What I love most about this paper is the way it absorbs pigment. As soon as you lay down a wash, pigment is already inside the paper. It's almost like the paper grabs the pigment and holds on to it. This paper can take heavy paint, a lot of water, and countless layers without flinching. It's ideal for glazing, and it's perfect for people who work wet on wet like I do. Here is something that doesn't get talked about enough. This paper barely buckles. Even when it's very wet, it dries flat. That alone makes it almost unmatched for me. The only downside, maybe, is that it's a bit harder to lift off the pigment. Happy with that trade-off. And then, finally, arches. The classic. Arches absorbs paint beautifully, but a little slower than the Saunders Waterford, which gives you more time to work with the paint. Blending feels easier, lifting is so much more forgiving, and overall it's a very comfortable paper to work on. Both Arches and Saunders Waterford are my favorites. If this helped you narrow things down or saved you some trial and error, let me know in the comments. And if you want more daily watercolor content like this, you know where to find me. Ciao, ciao. Hey, you, just hopping on here to say that this is my desk right now. It's a huge mess. Sure is. But I'm working on new classes. As you know, I upload every day, so every day I shoot new content. And I think the next thing I'll be talking about is something like this. Does this one look familiar to you? If so, let me know, and maybe I can upload a similar video inspired by the person who actually came out with this flower painting. I can show you my personal approach following this tutorial. This is one of the most famous tutorials on YouTube. And yeah, if you're interested, let me know. If you recognize who made these flowers, let me know in the comments below. I'm curious. And yeah, working on new stuff. If you don't want to miss out on anything, hit like and subscribe, and I will see you in my next video. Bye. Ciao, ciao. Do your watercolor paintings look flat? Watch the simple guide and I will show you exactly how to increase value contrast step by step while painting this simple croissant so you can see the process in real time. If your paintings look finished but still feel dull or lifeless, the problem is almost always value contrast. Today I'll break down the most common value mistakes in watercolor and I show you how to fix them without ruining your painting. So here is the problem. One of the biggest mistakes in watercolor is that everything ends up living in the middle values, usually around values 3 to 6. We're afraid to go too dark, so we stop early. The result is a painting with color and detail, but no depth. And if you watched my previous video, you know that I like to simplify values into two main groups. Values 0 to 5 are light, and values 6 to 10 are shadow. If you don't clearly separate those two, the painting will almost always feel flat. If you're enjoying this watercolor value series, don't forget to like and subscribe. I upload daily, and there are already tons of watercolor tips and beginner-friendly lessons on this channel. So if you want to enhance contrast in your paintings, do this. First, protect your lightest values. It's always a good idea to do a value study, black and white, ahead of painting, but if you don't have time for that, you can either circle your highlights with watery paint, and obviously don't paint over them, or use some masking fluid and put in your midtones. I keep them soft and transparent. And the paint consistency I use looks a lot like coffee. So I want my midtones to set up the form. I don't want them too intense. In fact, I want them to disappear once the shadows are strong enough. So in other words, they should support the contrast, not replace it. And then comes the most fun part, or at least for me. Adding the dark accents. This should be very intentional and generally placed on top of midtones. But just a few strong darks placed next to light areas can completely transform the painting. If your painting feels flat, it's usually not missing color or detail. It's missing contrast. Strong lights only work when they're supported by strong darks. Let me know in the comments, do you struggle more with saving your lights or pushing your darks? If you have any specific questions, also feel free to let me know. I hope this helped, and I'll see you in the next one. Ciao, ciao!